Get ready to shop Lowe's Black Friday Doorbuster deals to save $150 on a 30-inch Blackstone griddle, now $299. Plus, choose a Whirlpool top-load washer or Midea top freezer refrigerator for just $398. These limited-time Doorbuster deals go fast, so get holiday ready today at Lowe's. We help, you save. Valid 11/28 through 12/1. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. See Lowe's.com for more details.
Is it time to reimagine your future? The right business skills may make a difference in your career. At Capella University, we offer a relevant education that's designed to focus on what you need to know in the business world. We'll teach professional skills to help you pursue your goals, like business management, strategic planning, and effective communication. And you can apply these skills right away. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
Welcome to the Exit Engine Podcast, episode 68.
Welcome to the Exit Engine Podcast, where we help founders, owners, and entrepreneurs turn their businesses into assets buyers fight for. If you're looking to grow smarter, reduce risk, and ultimately exit stronger, then this is the show for you. I'm your host, Joe Stapleton, and with me, as always, is my partner in value and salability, Mr. John Caniff. Hey, John.
Good morning, Joe.
So, John, we're going to dive deep into a very crucial but often overlooked part of exit planning, and we talk about this all the time in our assessments and in our framework. But this is about discovering and unlocking hidden value, right?
I love it.
Hidden value obviously is, or it's also called latent value, right? There are things that are going on inside your organization, John, everybody's organization right now that you are unaware of, right? There are bottlenecks. There are issues with process. There are potentially issues with customers. There are issues with employees. Every single business has some of these things going on, right?
Yeah, and it shows up in ways. I have many examples. We can get into a couple, but there's so many ways that this sort of penetrates into organizations that are sort of just forgotten about or said like we can't solve this because it involves multiple parties, or it's hard, or it's complex, or we tried to solve it before and we couldn't figure it out.
Absolutely. So, and again, there are hidden value includes things like, again, management, right? Who's your chain of command? It's going to be about recurring revenue models. It's going to be about standard operating procedures, right? There's going to be cultural alignment. There's going to be customer concentration. There are so many areas in which these bottlenecks can occur, where there are issues with process. And again, when you fix some of these things, it's amazing what actually can happen, because not only does it potentially change your top line revenue and your profitability, but as we always discuss on this podcast in particular, it's going to grow your value and salability, right? So we're going to talk, and we're going to get into, we've got a special guest today, and we're going to get into that. But first, John, let's talk about our new Exit Engine ecosystem. All right.
Yes.
This is everything and everyone you'll need to plan and execute a successful exit on your own terms and timeline.
Yeah.
Right?
Exit Engine helps founders grow smarter and exit stronger by providing diagnostics, roadmaps, coaching, community, and advisory support that reduce risk, increase value, and make their businesses buyer ready. It's
Absolutely.
The first exit planning ecosystem in the world, and you can start for free right now. Just go to www.myexitengine.com, drop your email in there, and check it out.
Absolutely. Yep. You get there now, and depending on when this launches, that you may find an email thing, or you may find actually a lot more information there. So just go to myexitengine.com right now, wherever you are. You can start for free. It's really simple. And what you're going to do is you're going to meet people like our guest today. Okay. And our guest is an expert in finding and improving hidden value. Frank Pyack is the founder and chief consultant at Organization Renovation, which I love that name, by the way. First of all, I just love the sound of it, but Organization Renovation. He helps lower mid-market companies uncover high leverage improvements that can lead to significant gains with minimal disruption. Frank's genius lies in identifying contradictions inside complex systems, places where outdated processes, conflicting incentives, or siloed decision-making are holding the company back. So Frank is the kind of outsider who can see what insiders miss, whether it's misaligned incentives, inefficient cross-departmental systems, or legacy policies creating friction. Frank helps business leaders diagnose root causes and turn them into simple, scalable solutions that accelerate enterprise value. Guys, today we're going to talk in depth, okay, about how to surface invisible operational risk before it sabotages your valuation, what founders should do when their company outgrows their systems, the real cost of poor cross-functional communication, and how a few targeted tweaks can radically improve buyer confidence when you get to that stage. So if you're in growth mode or planning your exit in the next 1 to 5 years, this is a must listen. Frank Pyack, welcome to the Exit Engine Podcast. Glad to have you here.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here.
We're really excited today because, again, this is something, as we talked about before, we talk about this stuff all the time. This is one of the first, and in our framework, it's the first thing that we're doing is trying to uncover the ways in which people are just completely oblivious, really, to really what's going on. And when you talk about stuff, you talk about really when we've talked before, you've got these 3 big areas that you find inside companies.
Yes.
Right. Can you talk a little bit about what those 3 areas are and what tends to happen as a result?
Well, the first one, and the one that's easiest to diagnose, and the easiest in most respects to solve, is misaligned incentives. If you're, to use manufacturing, because it's the simplest one to talk about, if your production manager is incentivized to keep cost per piece production low, he's incentivized to run large production runs. If your purchasing manager is incentivized to get cost per piece low, the easiest way to do that is to buy large quantities. And if your materials manager is incentivized to keep inventory low, he is incentivized to fight with the purchasing manager and the production manager. Right. They cannot all achieve their incentives. They cannot all achieve their KPIs without, they can't. One of them gets screwed.
Yep.
Right? Or all 3 of them get screwed to some degree. There's some level of compromise that has to happen, but they're inevitably in conflict. And really, odds are that if you just give everybody the same incentive as the materials manager, the company will be better off. Because in any factory, there is a limited number of bottlenecks. Mm-hmm. And the capacity of the factory is the capacity of those bottlenecks. And if you are getting costs down by producing large production runs in front of the bottleneck, you are building inventory that can never get through the bottleneck and will ultimately be scrapped. You are wasting money. If you manage for the inventory, you're going to waste a lot less money. If you're putting a value of the labor and the material, of the labor on top of the work in process, and putting the overhead of the CEO's salary and the insurance for the factory, sure, all the other expenses of the business on top of that work in process inventory, you are attributing a large amount of value to that work in process inventory, which is actually garbage.
Not true.
It will be thrown away. Mm-hmm. And all those costs are going to be written off. It's not profit. Your accounting system is lying to you because you've set it up that way. You don't know it's lying to you. It's not intended to lie to you, but you are attributing value to something that has no value.
Right. Yeah. And also you're also tying up cash, right? To your point.
You're tying up cash. Yes. Yeah. You've spent money on labor that has no value. Yep. You spent money on overtime that has no value. You've spent money on materials that have no value. You've saved money in the quarterly income statement, and you have profit in the quarterly information statement, but in fact, the true value of most of that work in process inventory is 0. It's you are misunderstanding reality.
Right. So that's misaligned incentives. What are the other 2?
Well, I've just actually given you another one, which is that the accounting system is following certain rules that have been built up over the last 200 years or the last 500 years, really, because double entry bookkeeping comes from the Medicis, if I'm
Right.
remembering correctly, 500 years ago.
Right.
When overhead rates were 30 or 40%, applying those costs to the materials was not a serious error. When overhead rates are 300 or 400%, it's a horrendous error. The marginal cost is much, much lower than the attributed cost, and the attributed cost has nothing to do with the actual money you put in. But on the books, this stuff is valuable. It has nothing to do with the reality. And when I took accounting in business school, we talked about the fact that in inflationary times, you are undervaluing your balance sheet because the building you bought for $100,000 a year 10 years ago is now worth 200, or worth, you bought it 20 years ago and it's worth $1 million.
Right.
So you've got undervalued assets on your balance sheet and overvalued assets on the balance sheet, and it's by coincidence. It's possible they balance each other out, but the odds are no. The odds are that you're way off in some direction or another. And if you're making decisions based on those balance sheet values that are wrong, you're making decisions that inevitably are wrong. You can't make a good decision on bad information.
And at the same time, right? I mean, that's the kind of thing that will be seen by a buyer's team coming in there, right, and doing this due diligence work.
Right. So you have this building that you're valuing at $1 million, and the buyer comes in and says, "Ooh, that land is worth $10 million, whether the building is there or not." And these guys willing to sell us the whole business for $2 million? We're going to make a bundle on the real estate.
Yeah, and just to point out, and this isn't fraud by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
This is like, this is again, you put it very well, Frank, is this is misvaluing the assets that your company controls.
Right, and you're following the rules.
Exactly. Yeah.
The rules have gotten out of whack. I mean, the worst example is hospitals, right? Everybody says hospital beds are expensive. We need to minimize them. Well, what does a hospital bed cost? Some of them cost $500 and some of them cost $20,000. You divide $20,000 by $365 days a year, you've got a few $100s a day. Why is the bed $3,000 a night? Because you've got $1 billion hospital with 1,000 beds.
And you're trying to cut that. You're breaking the cost of the entire thing down per bed.
Well, yeah, because those are the revenue I mean, if you think about it, those are the revenue producing assets that you have. So some cost accountant said, okay, we have 1,000 beds. We have to divide the cost by, and our costs are $1 billion. Divide that cost by that.
Oh God, beds are expensive. We better have fewer of them.
Right.
Which means we have to send people home before they're healthy.
And then they have to come back. Yeah, sorry.
This actually can lead to life and death situations, right? You send people home prematurely, they get sick. If maybe they come back sicker than they left. You have procedures that cost a fortune to save them, and sometimes you don't save them. Sometimes people die that would have been fine if they just stayed in the hospital 3 more days. And there was no surge. Why was the pandemic such a catastrophe? There was no surge capacity in the system.
Right.
There are literally
bottlenecks.
There are literally fewer hospital beds now than there were 20 years ago, and the population is significantly larger. That's insane.
Yeah.
But
it's all because of the attributed cost accounting.
All because of attributed cost accounting. And the fact is, if you doubled the number of beds, the cost per bed would go down. I mean, you'd have to build more building because you shrunk the hospitals. But you doubled it doesn't cost that much to build another wing. You double the number of beds. You have a low intensive care unit with fewer nurses and fewer orderlies, and the cost per bed goes way down. And you know what? You'll have fewer malpractice lawsuits, and your malpractice insurance will go down, and you will probably save. The cost per bed will probably be less than half.
And you'll provide better care.
And you will provide better care.
So why, Frank, why don't they know this?
I don't know. It's like, okay, I'm smart, but I'm not that smart. We have people with PhDs and MDs who are, geniuses running hospitals, and they're making this idiot mistake. And when I was a kid in New York City, there was an article in the New York Times said New York built a hospital to be the best hospital in New York, and then when it was finished, we decided we couldn't afford it; would be too expensive to run. And so there was this palace of a hospital that never got opened.
Right.
Why? Because the accountants, the cost accountants and the financial accountants are following the rules that were created 500 years ago that are divorced from reality.
Right.
The entire accounting system needs to be rethought.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, because in your example before, it's like the building, and they're depreciating that building over time, right? So it's actually, if it's a 20-year useful life or 27-year useful, whatever it is, I can't even remember, but they're depreciating it down further from that $100,000 down to nothing. And it's not nothing, but even despite the land or the land value going up. So it's even more of a discrepancy than we talked about, because the market price and the accounting price are just completely different.
Right. So we had said 3. We've actually hit one that we didn't talk about, which was bad accounting. But incentives, bad accounting, information flows.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a chain of command, the larger the chain of command, the more information gets filtered as it goes up, and the longer it takes to go up. And then you have a decision that has to affect 2 departments. So one department raises the issue, it goes up the chain of command, it takes a week, 2 weeks, a month. The decision's made at the top, it goes down the chain of command, it takes another week, 2 weeks, a month. And now it's 2 months later, a decision that should have been trivial and should have been fast has taken 2 months, and what might have been an easily solved problem is now a big problem.
Right. It's out of control. It's worse than it was.
The 2 people at the bottom of the chain of command who could solve the problem to talk to each other and agree on how to solve the problem, it could have been solved in a day. Or it never gets solved at all, because I'm at the bottom of the chain of command. I tell my boss, he says, okay, I'll tell my boss. He tells his boss. His boss has 300 things to decide amongst. He's sending a report to his boss. Your piece doesn't even get there. And so it never gets resolved. And so you have this ongoing problem that the CEO is oblivious to, the heads of the departments are oblivious to, and it's an inefficiency. And it's a durable inefficiency, and it's an inefficiency forever, because nobody who can solve it has ever known about it, even though there's some poor soul at the bottom of the chain of command screaming.
Yeah. And by the way, and also they are screaming now at each other, not screaming at each other, but they are together going, why can't these guys fix this thing? If we could just do this, we could do this. And now they're angry at management.
And this came out, actually, this exact thing came out in a franchise survey. So your scenario was exactly the way it worked out, Frank. And the result of it was it went filtered up. There were 300 things. This never got solved. It never happened. And it came out in a franchise survey that this problem manifested itself with regard to logins for agents that had left the company. And we all knew about the problem. We all knew the solution to the problem, but no one ever made the decision. I shouldn't say nobody, but like the CIO of the company never made the decision, because he had too many things on his plate. And it was an easily solvable problem that when we finally addressed it, when we got a new CIO, I went into his office and we sat down, had the problem. He's like, why wasn't this fixed? Like, a lot of reasons. Can we get it fixed now? Let's get it fixed. And it took about a week of coding and we're done.
So the 2 things that make me craziest, that make me most angry, one is the hospital thing. The other is customer service. Customer service is treated as a cost center to be minimized. And so you end up with undertrained clerks who don't know how to solve the problems or even understand the problems when you call them. Or you have a chatbot that's been coded to answer 6 questions, and if you go to the website, you can figure out how to answer those 6 questions. You don't need the chatbot. You need customer service because the damn website doesn't talk about this.
Right.
Yeah.
And you get pissed off. And if you can, you leave and you find a new vendor.
Mm-hmm.
You're reducing the lifetime value. You spend a fortune getting a new customer, and you reduce the lifetime value very quickly because first time they have a problem, they get pissed off, legitimately pissed off. You are mistreating them,
right?
To save money, you're throwing money away,
right?
Assign customer service to marketing. Tell marketing to spend half their market research budget on customer service, and you will get so much better information from well-trained customer service people than you will ever get from focus groups.
Right.
Well, you will save an enormous amount of money. You will be able to find the problems in your products, to find the problems in your services, fix the problems in your products, fix the customers in your service problems in your services, and have happy customers who stay with you for a long time. You make money hand over fist, and you stand out amongst a sea of companies that screw their customers as a
matter of doing business.
Honorable company.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to talk to the CEO of Zappos a while ago, and his customer service philosophy was drive all the decision making. When we were talking about that earlier, drive all the decision making down to the customer service people, and they can make the decision. To your point, Frank, is it's much easier to retain a customer than to get a new one. And they would give them free shoes if there was a screw up. They had the power to make sure that they retain the customer pretty much at all costs. And the loyalty of that brand was amazing.
Look at LL Bean. I mean, he's a great example.
Better example. Yeah.
A company that's been around forever, right? And does well, right? And is profitable and all that stuff, right? And its entire philosophy is built around, you want to return these boots 15 years from now when they're worn out and whatever? Great, return them.
No one did it either. Just so you know, no one ever
does it.
No one ever does it. Yeah.
The cost savings comes from we don't actually have to give people free stuff because they don't ask for it. We make quality things. We tell them that they can have them if they have new ones if they want them, and all we do is just count money, right?
The Four Seasons hotel chain, right? They say that anybody on the front line can spend $2,000 to make a customer happy.
There you go. Yep.
So
they make a lot of money. They're a very successful hotel chain. They're profitable. They do not lose money on that decision.
But that lifetime value of those customers who will only go to Four Seasons because they could be, even if every time they go they get $2,000 worth of extra value, it's still worth it because they're spending $5,000 a clip in renting the rooms. Right? It's just, so it's interesting how, though, again, when we talk about the value, overall value and salability, just to bring it back, to that for a second, there are major implications here, right? Like major implications. And what I want to just kind of shout out to everyone is that you may not see this stuff, and it's very possible that you don't. And by the way, that's okay, because most people don't see this stuff. We've just talked about very large companies and very large examples of people who do not see this stuff, who we would assume were very, very smart people, right? But the bigger problem is that there are people out there. They work for private equity companies, and they've worked for they are high-end M&A folks who work for buyers, okay, who will spot this stuff. Okay. And as you're going through due diligence, and they will uncover this stuff. All right. And what you'll see is that your valuation dropping precipitously as a result.
Even as they're finding opportunities to make themselves more profitable. So the value to them goes up, even as the value that they tell you have goes down.
That's it. Because marketable inefficiencies. Right. And now what I've got is a situation where I now know where the holes are. I know how to plug them. Thank you very much. I will take this to what is now ultimately almost a distressed asset, right? And take that, and I'm going to now turn that around and plug all those holes, and now I'm going to make 30% in the next 3 years, right?
Although there are private equity companies who buy things and destroy them.
That's true too. I just mean that the professional side of this, the idea that, right, that the three of us sitting here, right, aren't the only people in the world who understand what we're talking about, and that a lot of those folks work for the buyer. right?
Yes.
And so,
Well,
yeah, and so it's
the other thing is simply you have a process, a procedure that made perfect sense 5 years ago, and the business has grown, and you're following that same process,
right.
and technology's changed, and the customer base has changed, and that process doesn't fit the way it did 5 years ago, and you are creating inefficiency that you're completely oblivious to because there's no specific pain that points at that process.
Right.
There's no specific pain that points at that procedure. There's a generalized discomfort. There's aggravation. There's friction. There's fights between executives and fights between department heads and their subordinates that they don't attribute to the underlying cause, because the underlying cause is habit.
Do you, Frank, in those situations, do you advise like processes to be owned by people, or what's the solution to making sure that processes are updated with technology or with some sort of cadence?
Tough question, because if processes are owned by people, then that's a new silo.
Fair point. Yeah.
So, I mean, basically, silos tend to be well run by the criteria that the silos are run on. And as we've said, accounting there's 500 years of, I mean, accounting's the perfect example, right? It was brilliant 500 years ago. When General Motors created the system that General Motors was running on 40 years ago, it was genius. But overhead rates were less than 100%, and the accounting errors were not even noticeable. If you looked for them, you would have found them, but they didn't hurt the business very much. When overhead rates are 300%, something that doesn't matter at 30% is incredibly important. It's dangerous.
It's also tied to regulatory things, right?
Regulatory things. We have the Accounting Standards Board, which talks to the SEC, and if you don't play by those rules, you could be in deep trouble.
Right.
Yeah.
But going back to the car industry, or the manufacturing industry, again, as an example of where these things get fixed, though, okay, is to look at, we brought this example up before, but the BMW plant in South Carolina, right, where they basically, the bottleneck, the process, all that stuff is where they have built a factory around eliminating those things, right? So that
the role model is
just in time delivery of parts. The parts, the robotic stuff, the parts come right off the truck. They never even store the parts. They never warehouse them. They just come right off the thing and directly onto the car. They've got, so the point is that there are people out there who do
right.
it.
I mean, BMW took Toyota as a role model, and Toyota spent 20 or 30 years figuring out how to do this, little tiny experiment by little tiny experiment. So if I'm going into a client, I'm going to say, look, the performance measurements are relatively easy to figure out, and they cost you $0 to change. You might have your lawyers write some documents, human resources might be spending some time, but these are people on salary. You're not actually laying out any new money to solve these problems. And you can afford to make experiments. You can afford to change some of the performance measurements and see what happens. The way Toyota would take a little bit of inventory out of the factory here and a little bit of inventory out of the factory there and see what happens.
Right.
So use that system that Toyota invented for manufacturing for the entire business, for the entire management process. Make a limited number of experiments all the time, never too many, because if you try to do too many things, the results get very confusing. You don't know what caused what. But you can make experiments on incentives. You can make experiments on reorganization. I wouldn't make dramatic experiments on reorganization. I was in a company that reorganized frequently, and it just was chaos.
Yep.
Right.
But to say, let's make customer service part of marketing, it'll take a year or two for marketing to figure out how to do it right, probably.
Right.
Don't expect overnight success on that. But in 2 years, if your marketing if your marketing research expenses are not down and the quality of your marketing is not up, fire the head of marketing.
Right. Yeah.
because you're getting real valuable information from unhappy customers.
Right. Yep.
But change performance measurements, that changes the culture. That changes the relationships. The people who are yelling at each other, you say, okay, your bonus is based on corporate profits. Your bonus is based on you guys figuring out how to solve problems together. They now have an incentive to talk to each other, not to fight with each other.
Right. Right.
And
you've empowered them, right? Because that's the key thing is that you've eliminated the bottleneck. You've given them the power. You've empowered them to be able to make decisions, which is helping the business because it's happening faster and better, right? They are the people on the front lines. They probably know. And B, you're stopping the fighting. You're stopping the people.
You're lining them, right, Joe? Right? You're lining.
Well, I say, with a few exceptions, I say you start with the top people. You just start with the department heads and what are the incentives for the department heads.
Right.
And after you've figured that out, you've made a huge improvement in the quality of the business, and probably everybody goes home a little earlier at night and they're a little nicer to their wives and their kids, and their wives and their kids are nicer to them, so they come back in better moods and everybody's a little happier, and then they're treating their subordinates a little better because they're not as stressed and they're not fighting with the other guy, and then they can have the freedom to ask their subordinates, how can we make this better?
Right.
And the subordinates will be able to tell them. And sometimes the subordinates will be wrong and sometimes they'll be right, but they'll be right a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a cascade and it takes a time, but you can't go too fast and you can't go too slow. And then you start thinking about those obsolete policies and procedures, because now you have a little more headspace to look at them. But an outsider is invaluable for that as well.
Yes.
Right? I mean, you had this policy for 20 years. It's you're not going to think about it.
Right.
Somebody else can
we do it.
Why are you doing that? And you think about it and you say, oh my God, we shouldn't be doing it this way. But unless somebody gives you a reason to look at it, you've got lots of stuff to do. You've got those subordinates to give performance appraisals to. You've got those guys that you're not fighting with anymore, but you're still negotiating. You're still spending time figuring out how to solve problems. Mm-hmm. You're working on the stuff that you can see that you know how to solve, not the stuff that you can't see. And when somebody shows you what you can't see, then you probably can solve it without a lot of help. Maybe the outsider needs to help you.
Right.
But just knowing it makes a huge difference.
At least, and again, depending on where you are in your exit journey, right? The reality is it may be too late, okay? Based on your timeline to make a major change that way, even if you discover it, right? But at least you can point out, it'll actually help you to point out the fact that I didn't get to fix this, but I've identified this issue. As we were talking about before, the buyer comes in here, spots these things, right? They're not telling you, they're going to tell you they found these things and they're going to drop the valuation, but you're not thinking about how they're going to take that stuff and then turn that into profit, right? But if you come to them and say, hey, by the way, you're going to find this, right? And I didn't fix it and I know it's there. Here's an opportunity for you that actually raises your value and saleability in the eyes of the buyer.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if your negotiating position is so much better if you know where the hidden value is, even if you haven't had the chance to realize it. Because you know that they're going to, okay, I could see that if I kept this business for 5 more years, I could double the profits. Mm-hmm. They're going to, so I know you're going to double it. You might be better at me. Maybe you can triple it. But I'm not going to sell you a business where the profits are going to be worth twice as much as they are in 5 years as if they're going to be the same as in 5 years.
Right.
Exactly. I have a negotiating position now that enables me to get a better price.
Exactly right.
And it goes a long way to pointing out, as Joe's pointing out, it goes a long way with buyers. Trust me, buyers find stuff in due diligence that you don't know about. But to the extent that you can point those things out to them or some of those things out to them, you're buying a lot of confidence from the buyer to say, hey, this person is disclosing all these things to me that I don't need to find in due diligence, and maybe I would never have found these things. Some of the things you're talking about never would have been found until after the buyer has that sort of aha moment in 60 days, or when the problem comes up again, if it happens every month or something. So you're buying goodwill.
Some of these problems, I mean, look, if the accounting is standard accounting and the accounting is screwed up, not every buyer, even very, very sophisticated buyers, are going to say, let's re-examine the accounting from ground up.
Right.
No, they're trained in accounting in the same standard.
The same way.
Those misvaluations, there's certain ones they're looking for. Okay, the book value of this is nowhere near what the real value is, and the book value of this is way over what the book value is, what the real value is, and they know how to. But gee, the KPIs are all because that's the way standard accounting works.
Hey, I'm Joe Stapleton from the Exit Engine podcast. Building a business is hard enough, right? Planning your exit shouldn't feel like another lonely, confusing project you have to figure out on your own. That's why we created Exit Engine. Exit Engine isn't just a software tool, it's an entire ecosystem designed to help founders engineer a successful exit. You'll get access to self-assessments, growth roadmaps, and a peer community where you can learn from other founders who've been in your shoes. You'll also find the guidance and expert resources you need to build a business that's actually worth buying, and to do it without burning out. Imagine having the clarity to know what your business is worth, exactly where to focus to improve it, and the confidence to exit on your own terms, whether that's next year or a decade from now. You don't have to do this alone. You don't have to build a business alone. Join us and let's build your exit strategy together. Visit myexitengine.com to get started. That's myexitengine.com. Right.
You're not going to find that.
No one's going to.
No, exactly. So,
right. But again, another, all the more reason, right, for you to actually point that stuff out if you can find it. And one of the things that we believe is so strongly is, and I'm sure that you do this in some way too, because I want to talk next a little bit more, Frank, more specifically about actually your approach to things and how you actually work with clients and things like that. But we know that the first thing that we're obviously doing with anybody, with any client, right, is assessing their current state, right? This is the state of the union. Here's where you are. Here are the things that we can look at. Here are the things, the techniques and the processes of doing this ourselves that we can apply here so that we can uncover this stuff and show you what this stuff potentially is, because we know to look for the accounting that is right, except it's not.
Yes.
Right. So the what I want to talk about a little bit about it for you is, let's start here. When you're talking with someone the first time, because I think, again, part of the problem that we probably all face here in our work is getting people to understand that this exists, right? I mean, the entire conversation we're having right now is for the benefit of the listener to know that what you might be seeing may not be real, right? And what you want to do is you want to see the reality so that you can deal with the reality and you can adjust reality to in your favor and everything else. What do you find is the general mindset when you kind of show up and start talking with people at the beginning about their issues and things like that? Do you find it difficult to get people to kind of like accept and understand what you're saying and what you're seeing? Do they believe it? Like, what does it look like when you start working with people at the beginning?
My working assumption is I'm brought in because of a symptom.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I have to understand the underlying causes of the symptom. What is the real disease?
Right.
So the first thing is fact finding. And that is a lot of interviews.
Right.
And I'm looking for certain clues that I know some of them are there. I know that the incentives are not going to be perfect.
Right.
The best companies are having imperfect ones. Most companies have terrible ones.
Right.
And I know that is a huge quick win. So that's where I start.
Mm-hmm.
If I get them a huge quick win, then it's okay. We have a huge quick win. Do you trust me to go deeper? And that's the next engagement. And it's a completely different negotiation.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, it's, let's map out the systems. Let's find the bottlenecks. Let's analyze how to, there are bottlenecks that can be easily changed. But if you break a bottleneck, another one pops up.
Right.
Sure.
So sometimes the bottleneck you have is the one you should keep, and sometimes it's the one you should break.
Right.
Right. So you analyze the bottlenecks and you say, okay, in 2 or 3 years, this is going to be a different company, and the analysis is not a permanent analysis. But for right now, let's maximize the value of this bottleneck and get the most out of it, which means you improve the capacity of the whole system, because this is the limiting factor. Let's find those 1, 2, 5 bottlenecks and let's optimize those.
Mm-hmm.
And that involves looking at policies and looking at procedures, because the policies and procedures are hiding the bottlenecks.
Right.
And that's a slower process, harder process than incentives and performance measurements.
Yeah, I can imagine, because you really have to know the entire system, Frank, right? Because when you look at the incentive structure, it's like, okay, let me look at how people are incented, and that's sort of not simple, but it's a knowable thing. With a system, it's like you really have to do interviews. You have to understand the complete system to understand where the problems lie, the process improvements, that type of thing.
Well, okay, I mean, I'm a soloist. I don't have the capacity to take on a $100 million company and understand it at that level of detail in any kind of reasonable period of time.
Sure.
So what I'm going to look for are sub-optimizations that are improvements.
Mm-hmm.
Let's find this bottleneck. Let's optimize this bottleneck. Let's get this better. That will impact other parts of the system. And now we have new pain points, and that's the next place to go.
Right.
And we may undo something we just did because it's causing an impact down the road.
Right.
I learned about bottlenecks from the book The Goal and Ellie Goldratt, who developed the theory of constraints. His second book was about warehouses. He said, okay, in The Goal, my hero, with the help of Jonah, Goldratt's stand-in, fixes his factory. The warehousing system that was designed to cope with a dysfunctional factory now is coping with a functional factory, and it can't cope.
Now it's broken.
Now it's broken. Now we have to rethink the entire distribution system.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you rethink the entire distribution system, and now the sales team needs to understand how the thing works, because now they have new opportunities for sales, and they ought to improve the sales, and the marketing has to change. And so every improvement has ramifications down the road. And the KPIs and the performance measurements that were appropriate with a dysfunctional factory for marketing and sales and customer service now need to change also. And by the time you've got all of these things solved in the 4 or 5 years it takes to solve all of these things, the market has changed and new technologies has come in, and you have to rethink everything anyway.
Right.
I mean, I'm thinking about AI as a change agent, right? That companies are throwing incredible amounts of money at AI without a clue what they're doing. There's a terrible fear of missing out, and you have this incredibly potentially useful product that could potentially be a disastrous product, right? You have a new toolkit that you don't understand, and you use the tools in the wrong way in the wrong place, and things will blow up.
That's right. If I use the claw side of the hammer, right? If I've never seen a hammer before and I pick up the hammer and I start trying to bang something with the claw side of things, right? I'm just going to be like, all right, great. I got a new tool, but I'm not using it right.
Right. And so you need the same analysis that I would take to a factory, I would take to any AI project. I would say, before we start the project, let's map out the project, the product, the process that currently exists. Let's find the deficiencies, and let's figure out if AI will help this, or we have to modify the process for AI to help this, or maybe just modifying the process will solve the problem. We don't need AI.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And let's do small AI projects so we learn the darn thing, because it's incredibly complicated. And the vendors are dealing with an unprecedented product that they don't actually understand as well as we would hope they would.
Right.
And the honest ones admit it.
Mm-hmm.
But they also use that as a shield. Well, we don't actually understand our product, so don't blame us when it blows up.
Right.
And so how do you protect yourself how do you train your workers to know how to your knowledge workers, right? It's not the people on the factory floor or the people delivering things that are going to be that affected in the short run. Who knows in 5 years? But for right now, your financial analysts, your systems analysts, your product managers, the marketing processes, all of these things they're looking at AI.
Yeah.
And
It's the promise.
they're doing things that look like they make sense, which may or may not make sense. And all these people talking about agentic AI, okay. We're going to have an AI do things that people are currently doing now. And we're not going to, how are we going to supervise that, right?
Well, the customer service example you said before, Frank, right? Like if you train the AI bot on the 7 things or the 8 things, or I think you said 6 things earlier that you can glean from the website, like that's what they're doing with these AI people. Like, do you really want the first customer interaction that you have with a customer, or the second customer interaction is by an AI bot? As opposed
Actually,
to
that would be a big improvement, because these are not AI bots.
These are old chat.
These are very crude tools.
Right.
And if you actually had the AI read the website and had the AI listen in on real conversations between humans and humans, right? If you gave the transcripts of all the customer service calls to
that's different, right? That's a different.
At that point, you're using AI as opposed to some very crude tool that's been programmed with a set of yes or no's and if this then that's. That would be a huge improvement. And in fact, I think that I would say, you want to save money on customer service, you spend a lot of money on customer service. Build these chatbots slowly and carefully. And the first thing that every chatbot should say, and it can work for sales too, is I'm a chatbot and my job is to find the solution to your problem. If I can solve the problem, I will. And if I can't, I will get you to the best qualified person. Your choice, whether it's the best qualified person immediately available or the best qualified person. The best qualified person immediately available may be able to talk to you in 10 minutes. The best qualified person may not be available for 3 or 4 days or a week. But if the more information you give me, the better information I will give to the human being who will solve your problem. That would collect an enormous amount of incredibly valuable information that the chatbot could digest and turn into reports to engineering, reports to product management.
Yep.
And you're being upfront with the customer, right? You're not putting a chatbot in front of someone and they're saying, is this a real person or is this a chatbot? Like I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I'm a chatbot whose job it is to get your problem solved.
Yeah.
And probably it's going to take a person to do it, but I want to get you to the right person, so I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions.
Yep.
Yep.
I don't think there are very many people who would object to that.
Agreed. Because you're again, they're calling in with a problem. No one likes to call customer service. No one likes to do something. I mean, they're not just calling because they want to interact with a chatbot. They have a problem that they want solved. And if you're upfront and honest with them to say it's going to take 13 minutes for Sally to be ready, and she's the person you need to talk to, or I agree with you. People will interact with that.
People want they're calling because they have a problem and they want the problem solved. However they get the problem solved is great, right?
I have dealt with chatbots that were completely useless. In fact, the one that pissed me off the most was with Anthropic's chatbot. Anthropic sells Claude, which is one of the best AIs out there. Exactly. There was a problem with Claude. Claude said, "Oh, this is a serious problem. You have to tell Anthropic." How do I tell Anthropic? Well, first it gave me complete disinformation about a page that didn't exist. And then we figured out there was a page where there was a customer service page. Customer service page had a chatbot that couldn't comprehend what I was saying. And after several minutes, it said, I will share what you were sharing with me with a human being who will get back to you promptly. And a week later, I mean, that was not the worst chatbot I ever dealt with. The worst one was with Intuit. I had a problem with the Intuit website, and I went to the chatbot said, "What product do you have a problem with?" And the website wasn't one of them, right? It was Intuit Online, Intuit on the desktop, TurboTax. It would have been mildly helpful with any of those, but no, I have a problem with the website. It's telling me to do something I can't do. No way to get to a human being. It's like, oh my God.
But let's go back. Actually,
but just, you know, just so Claude's, the Anthropic chatbot says a human being will get in touch with you. A week later, I get an email that basically says, read the documentation, which had nothing to do with the problem. There's no documentation about it. And you can reply to this email, but no one will read it. It literally said that.
you can reply, but nobody will.
Yeah.
It just says don't reply because nobody will read it. But yeah, you can reply, but don't count it.
It's like, okay, so you have this thing that's miraculous that I can ask a really complicated question for and get a lucid answer. And why isn't this your customer service? You know, clone it, have a specialty sub thing that's not large.
But the marketing department is writing all its content with it, right? So, I mean, the reality is that the AI discussion around this stuff, right, is that I think that, you know, Jen and I talk, you know, because we talk to so many people this way, AI comes up on every single podcast somewhere, right? And the reality is that what we are all kind of seeing here is that there is the very large movement towards, again, the things that I'm not necessarily good at, the things that are hard for me as a human being, getting started writing, you know, getting the ideas for things, right? Those are the kind of pain points that human beings have. And I think that's why this early adoption, I'm saying it early because I think we are very much early on in this AI stuff, right? Is going to be, again, it tends to kind of like, you know, lean there. The next round, like you said, the agentic AI stuff. And again, even the agentic AI stuff makes it seem as if it's all about interaction with a person back and forth all the time. And that's not necessarily even true.
No, a lot of the agentic stuff I'm reading about is the machine's going to do it for you. And I'm saying, okay, Claude is very, very good when it's very, very good, but it's like the little girl with the curl on her forehead. When it's bad, it's horrid.
Right.
Are you going to trust a machine that is at 2 sigma reliability?
Mm-hmm.
You can't.
You're going to have this thing make the airline and hotel reservations, and it's going to screw up 2 times out of 100. You're going to have some really pissed off executives.
Yeah.
When they get somewhere and their hotel room isn't available, right?
To Jill's point, it's starting things off, right? It's starting. I mean, the way that I use AI, the way that I think about AI, it's a great starting point, right? It's a great thing to
it writes all my rough drafts.
There you go. And I think eventually once it can craft a final version and take a rough draft that either you create or some other AI creates and make it refined and get that error rate down to, you know, 99.9999, whatever that is, the fifth sigma, is that's when it's obviously used, but that's going to be a long, long time if we ever even get there.
But really the best use of it right now, and by the way, guys, this is going on right now, and just specifically with what Frank's talking about in terms of the analyzation of process. Okay. So one of the best uses for agentic AI is going to be, and I'm not saying it's there yet, but is going to be exactly in the areas in which we are talking about right now in this podcast. Okay. The ability, and John, you and I are constantly talking to, you know, to people in the M&A space in particular, okay, whose job it is to build, who are building these things to do quality of earnings reports.
Yeah.
To be able to look into this stuff and to be able to do this stuff, it's only going to take an enterprising person like Frank probably to take that AI and go, okay, here's how we're going to run. Here's how I'm going to examine your business with it. Right. And be able to look at these things and to pull in case studies and to do stuff. The problem is,
trust it yet.
I know exactly. You wouldn't trust it yet to do that. No, exactly correct. And again, all I'm saying is but that is obviously one of the promises to me about how helpful AI can be in that regard. It's not about the knowledge we know, right? It's about connecting the dots where humans can't see. And what we're talking about today is exactly that, right? A situation that human beings have created in general that is actually outside of their capacity to know, that is actually hamstringing them in ways in which they don't know, just because they're just used to doing it a certain way. If there was an AI, and there will be an AI agent that could take in those inputs and look through this process and discover where the bottlenecks were, and at least give you clues, or at least get you down a path so that you can say, hey, look, these are the 4 places I can see that there might be issues, right? I mean, we've got to be close to that.
Well, if you have a factory where you actually know the capacity of all the machines, and you have all the stuff in an ERP system that you could run through an AI, it could in fact find bottlenecks.
Right.
And I would say that would be a really good starting point and a really good use for it.
Right.
But the agentic stuff, the way it's described is like the machine's just going to take over for this human, this clerical work that human beings are doing. The machine will just do it for you.
No.
And until it's hit at least 3 or 4 sigma, it terrifies me.
Agreed.
No, it's true. Yeah. And that's the truth. And I think that everybody should be wary of that. But again, I think it's also a matter of there's all kinds of fear baked into that and things like that. And people don't want to have that stuff, and they're fearful of losing their jobs and the things and all that stuff. And the way that I always look at it is like, look, if you can be the guy inside your company that figures out how to use AI in this way to do the thing, right? This isn't about this particular thing we're talking about isn't necessarily about replacing people's jobs, because what we're saying is there is nobody right now inside your company who can do this.
Well, Walmart is saying that they're not going to be, that the total population of Walmart employees is not going to grow for several years. And I think that's incredibly naive and dangerous. And Amazon has literally laid people off saying they're being replaced by AI. And I'm pretty sure all of those, not the same people, but a lot of people will be hired to replace the people who were laid off, because they're going to find out that no, in fact, they putting much.
Actually can't replace it.
Yeah, it's
right.
But it isn't just that for sure that there are jobs that currently exist that will stop existing, and there are jobs that don't exist yet that will replace them, and
new ones. Right.
Yeah, and in this case, it's very possible that unlike replacing, oxen with tractors, where you needed to know how to take care of ox, now you need to know how to repair a tractor, and it's a very different skill set. In some cases, as we did with assembly line automation, there's a de-skilling thing going on. People who are not that well educated will be able to do more sophisticated jobs because of AI, and it won't actually require people with college degrees to be able to use it.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's going to be it's going to be a whole other level. I think there's going to be, again, I don't know if I wouldn't call it an AI department, because I don't think that's what's going to happen. But
there's no electricity department except in public utilities.
There's no internet department in any company anymore, right? There were back in the day, but
but there is IT, and I think that you're right, John. I mean, yeah.
I guess what I was going to say is everyone's going to use AI. Like everyone's using AI, and I think that's the beautiful thing about AI right now is there's all the experiments you were talking about earlier, Frank. Is there's so much experimentation going on in companies and in industries, and unfortunately the benefits accrue to the AI companies, right? Not a lot of that information is shared with users. Like, they solve their individual problem, but the AI companies are learning a lot about like how their product is being used.
The AI companies are making it very difficult for themselves to find out how the products are being used, because the customer feedback loops are disgustingly horrendous.
Oh, well, that's not a product. I mean, that's a feature, not a bug, though, right? To a degree.
It's a choice, and it's a really bad choice.
I agree with you, but
it's horrifically bad management. I cannot speak to how they market to enterprises, because clearly they're doing an okay job marketing to enterprises, but marketing to consumers, the product is selling itself despite the marketing, because the marketing is malpractice at best.
I agree.
It's catastrophically bad at worst.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating that that's the case. It absolutely is. And again, what's crazy is when you think about it is that the nature of AI in itself, right, is actually all of that should actually be already built into it, because taking the data, getting the information back, all that stuff, getting the results and all that stuff is right there, right? There just needs to be a conduit to be able to getting that information. Now, one of the things is obviously we don't want to take that stuff, and the people are very, very, very careful right now, especially the AI companies, of looking like it's Big Brother, right? Well, so I saw a tool yesterday, Frank, I can't even discuss it in too much detail right now, but it is so good at what it does in a way that it can help businesses of any kind do a specific thing. It's so good, it's actually frightening. And the fact is that they, as a company, are frightened by it. In other words, they are very concerned about how it's going to be perceived because it is so good at what it does that it's a little bit scary. And so, I mean, it's a real concern, is my point, right?
I have asked Claude and I have asked Copilot and I've asked Gemini, why is there no feedback loop? And it's, well, because the European privacy laws and the California privacy laws is like, put a radio button on the damn thing that says private, shared. Give me some choices. Like, if I have a problem and I want this to go to the AI engineers who need this to make it a better product, I ought to be able to click a button and say, this is shareable with the engineers.
Seems simple.
It's an absolute opt-in, right? The default is private.
What you do with every app on your phone, right? On your iPhone, you're saying it. Can I share this information with you every time you do? Every single time. Why can't they do the same thing?
Yeah, it's just the default is private. The option is send this to the company. The company needs to know about it.
That's it.
Make this a better product.
Totally.
Yep.
That is
going to be, and there's going to come a day,
and I mean, the first company that actually makes the damn thing user friendly and gets publicity for making it user friendly is going to blow away the ones that don't do it.
And again, define what user friendly is and in what capacity. I think, again, it's a matter of, it's always going to be results, because, right? I mean, if I can do, and let's just to bring it back into this thing, right? What we're talking about right now, which is hidden value, right? Being able to spot these things, these areas inside your company that are the bottlenecks, that are the problems with incentivizing employees, the problems with the dissemination and the kind of the chain of information, right? Which are those three big things. All of those are things that could be examined by AI without affecting anything negatively, right? I mean, just from the examination standpoint. But it's still going to take, right? What AI is not going to do right now is make the changes, and so that it's still going to.
I was running, the AI would not make those changes as long as I was in charge.
Right, and you wouldn't want it to.
Maybe in 10 years or in 20 years, it will have gotten to a point where I would actually trust it.
That's right.
But
no question about it. Not probably not. But the point is that, again, so you're not going to use AI, right? That to make those changes. Is there a way right now that some companies could be using AI to spot and find this latent hidden value? Maybe, right?
Well, I did actually have a conversation, coincidentally, on Sunday with a senior executive at a software company who said, I get these reports and it would take me 3 weeks to go through them, and I don't have the time to go through them. And I run them through AI and it says, here are the 5 things you need to worry about.
Yep.
In
that's a good use.
That's a very good use.
And that's probably pretty accurate, right?
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't know the ones that it's not telling him about.
He doesn't know about,
but at least he has 5 things that he needs to worry about. And it might be a good idea for him to tell one of his people, look, go through this thing, spend the 3 weeks it takes to go through it and find the things that AI should have told me that it didn't.
And feed it back in and make sure AI finds that stuff.
These 6 things are important for the next time I send you this report, and make sure that there's 11 things that pop out of here as opposed to just the 5 you highlight.
It's all about the prompt, man. It's all about the prompt at the end of the day. So, Frank, when just in terms of recovery, we're running out of time here, but I want to get a couple of things that I want to get out of you. One is, what is something that you could advise people to do right now? We did talk about those 3 things, but if there was something that you could give people right now that they could go and do right away, that would make a substantial difference in terms of their systems and finding hidden value and the whole thing. Do you have any advice in that regard?
The first one is spend enough money on customer service so that you improve the lifetime value of your customers. That's the first one.
Yep.
Second one is look at the incentives. Are you confusing a KPI with a performance measurement, right? It makes all sorts of sense from a staffing point of view, from a management point of view, from a forecasting point of view, to know what the average phone call length is for the call center in customer service.
Mm-hmm.
It is completely counterproductive to tell the people that their performance review is going to be based on the number of calls they handle.
Right.
You want them to take as much time, and you want to have a fair measurement so that you know what the staffing requirements are. Don't confuse the KPI, the thing you need for management, with the thing you need to managing people.
Right.
That is a profoundly different, those are separate issues. And if
Right.
you compound them, you break them both.
Right.
Then you get a game system, and the information you're getting out of the system is of no value, and the quality of the work that you're getting is of much less value. Separate them and both improve.
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely. Great. So Frank, where can people get into, if people want to reach out to you, Frank, what's the best way for them to get to reach you?
Organizationrenovation.com. There's a dash in there. Organization-renovation.com. There are only 2 Payaks on LinkedIn. The other one's my sister. So her name is Hope. If you get to Hope Payak, you keep looking, but there's only one Frank Payak on LinkedIn.
And Payak is spelled?
Piuck.
Good. Okay.
There you go.
And it's frequently misspelled as Puick, but it doesn't rime with Buick. The I's in front of the U.
It is easy to transpose. It is easy. I've done it myself to transpose the U and the I just so that it's Payak, not Puick, which is a completely different situation and a completely different family too, by the way. Nice people, but not the same.
You've met some? I haven't.
Well,
Mother
Frank,
was a doctor. She used to get a magazine from a medical magazine to Dr. Pluck, Dr. Pick, Dr. Pink, Dr. Puck, Dr. Puick, and Dr. Payak.
So funny.
It's the name thing is always an interesting thing, but again, and there's nothing hidden about that. What is hidden in your business, though, somewhere, okay, is hidden value. There are things hidden in your systems, in your operations, in your processes that are broken, that you may not even realize are broken, and it's going to take some deep dive work to be able to discover what those are. But the reason this is important is not just because it makes you, finding these things is going to make you a healthy and sustainable business now, but because at that point at which you do go to sell, at some point, it's very possible that the people you sell to are going to uncover these things, and you may not even know they're there. It's best for you to find out what those things are now. You can go talk to someone like Frank by going to organization-renovation.com. You can find him also on LinkedIn, Frank Payak, Piuck, and also at Exit Engine. If you go to Exit Engine right now, myexitengine.com right now, you're going to be able to get in and start for free, figuring out things like this. Okay. You're going to meet other people like Frank who can help you with specific areas of your business. You'll find our entire framework at Exit Engine, our entire Exio framework that we've brought down to Exit Engine that's going to help you start to examine your business in a way that a buyer would, so that before you're ever ready to buy or to sell, before a buyer ever walks in, certainly before you're sitting across from somebody who's looking to buy your company, you will know the things that are wrong, and you'll know the ways to fix them. Even if you choose not to fix them, you'll know what they are, and that's really important. John, as always, man, thanks for being my partner in all this and stuff. I really appreciate it. Frank, it was great to have you on today. I hope there's going to be more to come with Frank, we hope as well. So stay tuned at myexitengine.com and on all of us and follow us, by the way, on LinkedIn. I'm Joe Stapleton, J-O Stapleton at LinkedIn, and John is John Canniffe, C-A-N-N-I-F-F-E at LinkedIn as well. So check us out there. Come to myexitengine.com right now, guys. It's going to be a benefit. No matter where you are on the journey right now, this is going to be worth your time to check out. You can start for free at myexitengine.com. Frank, thanks so much again for being here today with us. We really appreciate it.
It's been fun.
Thanks.
Is it time to reimagine your future? The right business skills may make a difference in your career. At Capella University, we offer a relevant education that's designed to focus on what you need to know in the business world. We'll teach professional skills to help you pursue your goals, like business management, strategic planning, and effective communication. And you can apply these skills right away. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.